Hi guys, welcome back to a brand new video, and today they pulled the plug, didn't they? Activision Blizzard decided PvE was not worth it in Overwatch 2, a game I barely played. To be fair, I barely played Overwatch 1. I thought it was fine, it was okay, but that's just the issue. In a sea of games that are just okay, you're going to gravitate the ones that are more enjoyable, more competitive. I don't know. The mechanics were fine. It was just sometimes team games, when you have to rely on a team, it can be very stressful, especially when you don't have a lot of people to regularly play with. So I just stopped playing Overwatch. And then Overwatch 2 happened because they were going to introduce a PvE mode, which would have been great because that way you can spend time learning the characters. It was going to have their own skill trees and stuff, so then you could get better at the characters and then go and play into the PvP, I guess. And to be fair, I played Overwatch 2 when it came out. To be fair, when it came out, I was stuck in a lobby, and then eventually I got to play it, and then I played it a few times off stream with another fellow streamer while they were streaming, and we had a lot of fun. I was running around as a healer, they were DPS, and it was great, it was good. But then I just moved to Fortnite and they moved to RuneScape, and we just hadn't really touched it ever since. And now this, Blizzard has decided, no, we're scrapping the PvE. So this is an interview over at, I think it's GameSpot. They released a video telling roadmap for Overwatch 2, explaining that basically we're not focusing on the PvE anymore. So the big talking about is this direction that you're taking with the PvE, okay? That you're basically aren't doing it. That you are not making the PvE anymore. You just scrap the PvE. Is that the correct way to characterize it? It's not happening anymore, and you pivoted away from it. I think I would characterize it slightly differently, which is we're doing a part of what the team had set out to do, but not entirely of what we discussed back in 2019. Right. So, what? This is PR speak, basically going, no, we're not doing it, but it wasn't our entire goal. Part of our goal was essentially the PvP, which Overwatch 2 was meant big main focus. Well, one of its big setup points of why it was happening was because, you know, PvE was coming, but since they've been working on the PvE, I guess there's been no real updates for the PvP. So the real focus is on the story missions and that experience, as opposed to the more open-ended hero mode and that stuff. Right, so it's fair to say the experience that you showed during that first Overwatch 2 reveal is not going to be the one that will be released at any point. Yeah, exactly. So we're definitely not doing a hero mode and talents and that power progression system. So is there going to be PvP? Or PvE, I mean? There's already PvP. I guess they're just not doing a PvE mode. Maybe. That's like some way of going around saying, no, we're not doing PvE. When did you realize that you weren't going to be able to execute it in this way, that it was what led to that realization? Yeah, this was a process. The development of any game is a process. Okay, yeah. In years following our announcement at BlizzCon 2019, we had a really large portion of our team working on the PvE side, good, of that game. And I think players of our living, running game could feel that because we eventually stopped making content for it, which is probably why a lot of people just stopped playing it. It's been maybe 2.5 years since the last hero that we launched, and we don't really want to be back at that point where it's another 3.5 years since launching a PvP map. So really looked hard at what we were doing with the live game in service of this much bigger thing that we were working on and hoping to release later. The interesting thing about it is such a difference releasing content for players that are playing a game instead of saving up all that content for one big release that you're going to do later. So we came to the realization that that wasn't the right way of developing for all of Overwatch. Wait, what? So we came... The interesting thing is such a difference releasing content for players that are playing your game instead of saving all that content. Okay, so why... I guess this is just the industry we're in now, right? It's live game in service where you just make consistent update constantly rather than just release a full package. And I guess a PvE mode would just be a full package rather than slight content releasing every so often. So we came to the realization that this was what the right thing for Overwatch. It was about a year. There was no content, so I guess the game wasn't making enough money. I made a decision to really shift strategy. That's when we rapidly shifted resources on our team on launching Overwatch 2, and that's why it came out last October. By the same time that we came away with that first experience of a new value for developing Overwatch, it was a new value for running the team, namely to always be putting out fresh and exciting fun new experiences for players, like a PvE mode, maybe that might have been fun, as runners running up a launch in Overwatch 2. I mean, Overwatch 2 was basically a slight balance update to Overwatch. It's really not even that massively different. It's just a 2 at the end of it. We realized that we cannot build that other game, so the whole point of an Overwatch 2 has just been scrapped. We couldn't save all for that content over the course of what we was looking to be at least the next several years to finish, Jesus. And doing that, pulling more and more resources away from the people that were playing our game and all the people that would be playing Overwatch 2. So we made a decision later last year that we would focus all our efforts on the live running game of all our PvE efforts on this new story arc that we're launching in Season 6. It's already at Season 6. And on top of that, to keep all our PvE efforts of all our co-op efforts invested in our seasonal release that releases rather than one big box release. So you are bringing out PvE. And then on top of that, to keep all of our PvE efforts, all of our co-op efforts invested in our seasonal releases rather than... Okay, so is that a way of saying we're not focusing on the PvE, all that resources is actually just going into seasonal stuff? Great. Presumably the resources, time, and other necessities that you would have needed to make PvE were factored in when you originally came up with the plan to create this game, Jesus. Guys, you shouldn't know that you would need resources to make new content. What has changed since that now you're in a position where you can't do it? I guess the general answer is... I guess this is a general answer, but I think it's totally applicable here. When you make a plan originally, it's based on a general idea and direction. Then as you develop, it's not developing a piece of bank software or something where there's a finite set of function it has to have. When you get into the meat of it and you start thinking like, okay, well, is this fun? Is it good? Is this original idea thing that we're thinking is going to be awesome? And when you iterate on that until you find something you're really excited about it, once you're kind of in that, okay, we have a good idea of what direction could we go in, the question is, well, what does it take us to get there? And so I think if you're building a game where you're taking the exact same engine, the exact same team, the exact same crew that has already shipped that thing, and you're doing the version 3 or 4 of it, pretty easy to plan really well in advance. Okay? But for games like this, it's tougher because the team was building something that is totally different than anything that they've built before. Alright? The story missions are significantly different than archives or other ways that we've told stories inside the game before. And so developing these, what it takes to do that, the technology required, the people required, the iterations required, it's all different. So I understand that people think it's probably relatively simple. It's definitely not, and especially because you don't know what it is just to try to build the thing, get it out the door and move on. You want to build something that really resonates and that people love. So I guess my take is just as the team learned more about what it took to make this, as it learned more about the time, the iteration, and the technology required, it just became clear the schedule wasn't going to work. Yeah, I think the scope of the hero missions was really, really large, and what it was going to take to finish it was going to be pretty remarkable, massive lift. You think about making a game that is supposed to be almost its own standalone co-op experience that people are going to be able to play as a main game, and not just how you put all the content into to finish it. Even just a small piece of it, talent trees, 40 to 50 talents per hero, over 35 plus heroes, just looking at the thousands of talents to make everything just to get the game out the door. Plus all the content and missions you'll be playing to do that, and it's just pretty gargantuan ask for a team. And then on top of that, you need to run as a live game, so the content has to continually come out for that side of the game, or the PvP. In reality, what we're looking at was running 2 separate games at the same time with a set of heroes as the piece that is shared between the 2 of them. And as we started to get further and further into it, obviously our players could realize that we're pulling focus away from the live game, but it just didn't look like there was a definitive end date in sight where we would be able to put a stamp on it, or the end date was years or years away, and it's no longer felt like we could do that to our players, or we could be doing that to the live game that we were running. And that's when we took the moment to shift strategy and put everything into the live game. I think there's going to be a lot of frustration around how we got here, because Overwatch has always been a live game. So people are going to think, well, you knew this was a live game, yet you pitched this other Overwatch game, and then you also justified the 2 on Overwatch title with that, which is, you know, a very fair point. The whole point of Overwatch 2 was we've got this brand new mode, PvE mode, coming. That's why we got Overwatch 2. Otherwise, it's just still Overwatch. So we're in a situation now where the game is just as it's always been. It's evolved in some ways, but the sequel was released. That sequel's justification hinged on the PvE. Why did it happen? That's a great question. You all knows where they're like, oh no, I need time to think about this, when they start with, that's a great question. We've talked a lot into the past about Overwatch 2 and how it's different from the original game. Even if it's just being a free-to-play. Look, being a free-to-play game. So it feels like Overwatch should have always been free-to-play. I remember when it first came out, and I was annoyed that I am paying this amount of money for basically a PvP mode. Considering that there were other games like that were free. Like League of Legends was free, okay? And that's just pure PvP. And swapping to a 5v5 team format or not. So, changing the team structure is worthy of putting a 2. Being free to play and swapping to a 5v5 team format was worthy enough to be 2. Okay. To me, the biggest change that we're looking at here is not just what we have some of the same heroes in the game, it's the way we're writing the game and how we're looking at the game going forward. You mean like a battle pass? I really hope the roadmap that was just released illustrates that to the players. We have a lot coming out this year, and even if you look at Season 6, the biggest season we've ever launched in the history of Overwatch, we have new support heroes coming out this season. We have new game mode. We have never released a new game mode as a seasonal update ever in Overwatch. It has 2 new maps coming out with Flashpoint. We're running a PvE event that season. We have a whole new PvE content. We have a new type of PvE content, okay, that we're releasing with our single-player hero mastery missions. Okay, Overwatch Anniversary is running another event, and then on top of all that, we've got start our new story arc with a new story mission, cinematics, and other lore content as lore codex. It's all packed into this one season, and this is the future we're trying to bring to Overwatch 2. That's why I hope, like, okay, so they're basically saying what we're bringing in. And that's how they're justifying the 2, is we're actually bringing in story and content. And but honest, okay, yeah, just to build on that a little, I think it's interesting to think about the overtime coming to the team a little bit later and seeing the state of things in the building, the plan to go forward, because the original pitch was this big monolithic thing that releases. It was all been pressure and expectations set against it, and really the decision that we made to not walk away from PvE or totally sort of abandon this side of the game is to move into a model that we know we can deliver. Okay, so you're just going to be focusing on little updates here and there as much as regularly as possible to keep the live service going, rather than try and release this full PvE game that you clearly, I guess, the team wasn't ready to make. We know if we get into the season or Candace, we can really release things during that season in a way that we can plan for effectively. This all feels just like resource time management, which is they were just working on this PvE mode that wasn't going anywhere. I guess they needed to get Overwatch 2 out, so they started focusing on just getting Overwatch 2 out, and then they realized that we're not going to have enough resources for this PvE big single player game mode, so we might as well break it down, or at least try to release some PvE events like Hero Mastery. There's a lot Jesus, this article goes on and on. No, we're going to do PV. Okay, so the more we know with seasonal trials releases, that more to the point gives us time to adapt to the next thing for players before you release it. And I think moving away from the idea of this being one big PvE release movement into, no, we're going to do PvE stuff all the time. We have all these plans. Season 6 has 3 different flavors of that, with a bunch of versions that are coming up and the season after that. For me, that's really the important thing here. We want to acknowledge that the thing that people were expecting, but also we have a high confidence that we can deliver in the way that we're shifting now, which is really for us. So what they showed off in 2019 is not going to happen, basically, and they're going to be doing smaller PvE modes, so probably not as in depth as what they showed in 2019. You can never ask anyone to take your word for it, so the hope is that once we start releasing the stuff in Season 6, players can see it and believe it. So they're basically going, listen guys, in Season 6 there's going to be some PvE stuff. Just wait for Season 6, it's going to be super worth it. Right, you're going to completely forget about the PvE mode that we promised and didn't deliver. We were talking the other day about live events and things like that in game, and Aaron off the top of his head rattled how many live events Overwatch 1 generally had in its season. In a year, it was 6 or something. Now it's a season of varying sizes, and we will have these seasons in a year. For us, it just feels better to be on this path where we know we can consistently release updates to players, tell a story in an ongoing, unfolding way, and not wait for a big singular moment, if that makes sense. I mean, that's just generally summarizes game's direction as a whole. It's rather releasing just a complete story. Here you go. It's let's incrementally release these stories, and it makes sense for a free-to-play game to do it like that. Get more people in, get new battle passes, you know, keep the money rolling in. There is an argument to be made that releasing smaller content consistently gives a game a longer lifespan, whereas if you just release a game and it's finished, it generally just has that like initial lifespan of how long it takes to complete the game, or how long you want to play the game for, which is why you see a lot of games just suddenly die down, like the initial excitement goes away and then there's no new content, so you know nobody's really playing it. Keller, it's a great there are a lot of okay, sorry, I missed the question. There are a lot of live first-person shooters out there, and you've always been competing for attention. I mean, they're competing within their own organization. You've got Warzone 2. Right, you got Warzone 2 as another competitive shooter. The thing about Overwatch 2 that really was exciting for me and a lot of other fan base was the PvE, yeah. It was a big swing for the team. The distinguishing factor, what is the impact of not having that, and why would you describe as the big swing for Overwatch 2 now? Okay. It's another great question. One of the things I've always loved about Overwatch, and I think it resonates with players, is the universe and the world we've created. All of the heroes that we created, and all the heroes... That's why they wanted a PvE mode. That's why they wanted a PvE mode, so they can play as their favorite characters and not have to be forced into a role just to play against another team. This is the issue. Like, nobody wants to play support except for me. Most people want to play DPS. Nobody wants to play tank, but... some of their favorite heroes might be a DPS, but they're forced into a support role, so they don't get to play them. The Overwatch universe is bright and its inspirational future, and I think all of our heroes really resonate with players, not just who their characters are, but their backstories and their lore. I think a lot of people are so invested in Overwatch PvE or Overwatch co-op content is because they're not really able to deliver a ton of story in our game with just a standard PvP gameplay. Yes, okay, good. So I think that for us, that side of PvE that we really want to continue running with Season 6 is to start off a big narrative where players do get to find out more about Overwatch, and they do get to find out more about what's happening in the world and what's happening with a lot of the characters in-game, so we're really committed to the PvE side of the game and delivering the story through small content update. Okay. On top of that, we have multiple cinematics coming out this year to help set the story, and that will be telling the stories. Okay, great. Cinematics. And then more to come. There are other pieces of the story, like features we're bringing to the game. Another one that we're doing for Season 6 is a lore codex, where players will be able to find it if they want, dig into a lot more of the universe. So just dialogue dump. I mean, every game does it. Honkai Star Rail has like a load of just text you can find all around and read some stories. So I hope players can see that we're still committed to PvE and we're doing more of the story than we've ever done before. We're just doing it a different way than we originally talked about. Holy. One of the most exciting things for players they saw the PvE was the characters and you were pitching really interesting. Different ways of using their abilities that seemed specific to PvE. It felt exciting to have a new twist on heroes. Is there any of that coming back, and is there going to be opportunities in these PvE modes to play these characters differently, or is it going to be largely familiar heroes but in new contexts? We will love to see more of that in the game, and while that was an integral part of our hero missions, we're no longer doing those. So... oh, right. Okay. But we had put a lot of work into our hero talents, and there were a lot of really exciting things, not just the way the gameplay with the fantasy of a hero war was when we could start interacting with the hero that way. So we would like to bring those back in the future. It's just going to take it. Okay, so really what that says is, you know, those cool stuff you saw? No. Maybe, but no, not right now. It's a maybe. We don't. Yeah, we can neither confirm nor deny the fact that that stuff you saw where using your hero's abilities in exciting different ways in PvE is probably going to function the exact same way as it does in PvP, because making it function slightly different in PvE would take more time and resources, I guess. So yeah, more broadly speaking, you've probably done a lot of work on the PvE. How much of all of that is going to make its way into the PvP or repurposed? I know people often think repurposed is bad, but at least it be in the game. Exactly. There's a lot that went into developing the PvE, we know. Some of this is tools and technology. So if you look at Junkstein's Wrath of the Bride from last year, that was all using our new mission technology that we had developed for Overwatch 2. So the PvE content that we developed in the future is going to be using all of the technology and tools that we created before. It'll be using new enemy ecologies that we developed in Overwatch 2. There are a lot of really big mission maps that we're going to be coming up. So they might repurpose those mission maps into PvP maps, or use them for like the PvE, small PvE stories, I guess. And then we talked a lot about the different ways that we can bring some of the other content forward, whether it's talent for heroes or even some of the missions that we started developing for the release, but it's all going to be coming out seasonally in a different form with different purpose than what we had it before. So we'd like to repurpose some of it and then also use that technology to build a bunch of new stuff also. Yeah, I think the breadth of the experience that we've been able to deliver this year are significantly different and more interesting than a lot of the live events in Overwatch 1 had. And I think a lot of that is just because of the work that went into the PvE and the engine revamp. So going forward, I think you should just expect to see a lot more of that. A lot more pretty wild seasonal events. We're experimenting with stuff, and a lot cool non-canonical stuff like Battle for Olympus, where we're augmenting heroes' abilities. Things like that are what you should expect to see a lot more of in the future. Okay. Oh my god, there's still more. Okay, they went in. PvE, whether it started a stated goal or not, was looking like a tool to broaden the appeal of the game, with the thinking that people who can't or don't enjoy playing in online competitive environments, yes, could do some co-op and have this interesting, unique experience. That means the Overwatch player base has diversifies and grows. What does axing PvE and reintroducing some of those ideas into the PvP framework mean for the ambitions of broadening the appeal of Overwatch and getting into new players? Yeah, this is really an interesting one for me, because I think it's only enjoyable single... I think if you only enjoy single player or PvE only experience, then Overwatch is going to be a little bit tough for you right now. Are they just straight out of a milling, like, if you like PvE, just don't play Overwatch? But once you get into this sort of mindset of frequently releasing PvP and PvE content, and where every single season has something really interesting for people to play and a lot of variety, I think we can still be good jumping on point for people who may not love hyper sweaty PvP matches, or really just want to see some cool story content with characters they like or whatever. For me, it's a combination of being a free-to-play now, which inherently removing a pretty big barrier for a lot of people who can't just spend the money to buy an expensive game, it's true, combined with the fact that we're trying to diversify every single season into a bunch of different experiences for people to jump into. So if the kind of person that wants to completely grind competitive mode. That's totally cool. If you're only kind of person who wants to come in and play some arcade, this is a cool co-op mode for seasonal friends that I can do. That's awesome. We want there to be a lot more. So while I don't see us springing this huge audience of PvP only diehard shooter players, I do see us being really appealing game for anyone who just loves fun shooters and learns new heroes and tries different stuff. So yeah, it's kind of different approach. But I think our goal is just to make this game as welcoming as possible for as broad a group as possible. That's your goal, but it still doesn't take the fact that the big single player PvE mode is gone. And you've only got these small PvE things. And I bet the people are just going to beat it in like half an hour or something and then be done with it. PvE was a big part of Overwatch 2, so people are going to think, well, those devs are going to get laid off or moved elsewhere. What is the impact of not doing PvP anymore going to have the team? As a person who spends most of his time talking about the organizational issues, one really cool thing is we're being able to take a bunch of people who have awesome expertise building new enemy toe types, big PvE missions, and big PvE worlds, and integrate them into the live game team where everybody else on the team, with everybody else on the team. So instead of having a big monolithic PvE side of the team and PvP side of the team, now we're sort of bringing everything together into a group that's focused. Everybody's on the PvP. It's all just connected. They're not two separate teams. They're all working together. Mainly probably focusing on these seasonal contents. What is our live experience? What is our season over season experience? And what do we have people specialize in PvP and specialize in PvE work together to create things, or these awesome things? Sorry, give me a second. I had no idea how long this article was going to be. I thought it was going to be a short video, but hey ho, here we are. So there's no adverse impact on the team. So what they're saying is people just got restructured. No, restructured? I guess they just, instead of separating the PvE and PvP team, they just put them together. Or it's just a fancy way of saying a lot of people were reallocated. Fancy way of saying people reallocated into the seasonal update side rather than just making a single player game, which makes sense if they didn't have enough resources for seasonal updates because they're all on this PvE team. It makes sense for a lot of them to now come over and focus on seasonal updates. I guess the people who are making like these maps might have went in to start designing PvP maps with people. Blizzard has always been a studio that puts high quality games. Most of the time. We won't talk about Warcraft 3 Reforged. And if a game isn't going to make it, we just never see it. That's always kind of been the way it is. There's very low work at the process when you tried something and you realize you failed. How do you think that reflects you and your team as a company, as a studio? Every team at Blizzard is a little bit different, and Team 4 is unique in a lot of ways. One of the ways that I think the team is unique in the direction we're heading is just to push to be much more open, much more honest about how we're developing. I think I wouldn't say that's the unique thing to you guys. Like the WoW team is also doing that. The Diablo team is also. I feel like Blizzard as a company has to be doing that, considering the scandals over the years recently. So I think you having to be open about what's going. I don't think this is even unique to Blizzard. I think a lot of developers are just going to be more open about stuff going forward. I think people are getting more and more sick of game developers promising something and then not delivering on it. Aaron is writing blogs every 2 weeks about how the game's going and stuff will change, and we have a lot of people from the team. Okay, this is more just like, where Morgan is right there answering questions on Twitter. Just basically going, yeah, we're open. We're talking about everything in a safe and PR way. I think and I hope that it signals a shift in the team and mentality of our part of the company that is really just about building this experience alongside the players as opposed to building it on our own and then handing it over to the players. So what I really want to see is just that start of co-development model, for the lack of a better way to put it, to grow and grow. Okay, they always go back to, we're building the game together, we're taking your feedback, and half the time they don't take your feedback because game development takes a while. So you say, this is broken, and then 2 months time they may may not even fix it by then. It will probably be like a year time they might fix it. Though it has gotten better. So we'll see. We did say necromancers were too powerful in Diablo 4, and they nerfed them to shit. We said sorcerers were too powerful in Diablo 4, and they just slightly hindered them. This is not the kind of thing where we're just going to give out the table. Please play this incredible thing and enjoy it. We want every single season to be something that is built on all the learnings from the previous. They're really pushing this season stuff. That we get it, your seasons. And then there's a reason why we're being more transparent here. We want to be able to give players more context into our development process, and we want people to have more context on when we have made this decision. Okay, what the takeaway from this was, PvE was coming on way too slowly. It was taking up way too much resources, and there wasn't enough resources dedicated to the season update. So you basically going, we have to scrap that and just stop moving some of the stuff we've got from here into the seasonal updates. That's yeah. You know, some people really just want a one and done game, and some people want the seasonal updates, and that's an issue when you have such a diverse audience. They all want different things, and when you focus on one thing, you're going to segregate an audience. It happened with Halo. Halo Infinite just went purely focused on competitive gaming, didn't have any of the fun modes that even Halo 5 had. So for a lot of people, just like, I don't want to sweatfest every time I play Halo Infinite. I just want to have some fun. I want to play some Griffball. I want to play some Infection, you know, Super Fiesta, and sometimes I just want to play a Slayer match. I don't want to have to worry about team comps and stuff, or where we're getting objectives. And then that just forced some of the fair players to go, no, I don't want to play Halo anymore. I guess a big draw of Overwatch 2 was going to be this big PvE story mode. And now they're going to... Like, I don't really have a reason now to go back and play Overwatch 2. I am so little invested in what I experienced. Like, I'm not fussed. Maybe the PvE might have been, like, just cool single-player story shoot-em-up mode that I might have come in, but... I guess overall they're like, we want to focus on creating seasonal content, so we have a reason for the players we do have to keep coming back, and maybe these PvE stuff might be really good. These small single-player missions might be really cool, but who knows? My belief that the reason that they're playing the PvP game is because they like the game that they're playing. So it's up to us, the development team, to continue to make that game as good as it possibly be. Yes, some people are still playing it, and then there's a lot of people who aren't. The real story here is, how do you take the resources that we have, the team that we have, so passionate about this game, to make people are playing... So, they're just focusing on people that are playing the game currently, rather than the people they could potentially get. It's annoying. It'll be interesting to see what they're doing with the Season 6, because they're really banking on this Season 6. The amount they mentioned Season 6 is going, I know you're really annoyed about the PvE, but just wait till Season 6. Okay? Stuff's happening in Season 6, which might soften the blow of this whole PvE mode. Please, just wait. Stories and stuff are coming in Season 6, please. Just wait till Season 6. This feels like the whole... Halo Infinite with Season 2, where it's like, when's Forge? Season 2! When's Forge? Season 2! When's Forge? It's Season 2, it's not here. Oh, did we say... Well, we didn't say the start of Season 2, we meant sometime near the end of Season 2. Are we going to be waiting for the PvE stuff at the end of Season 6? We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, guys, let me know what you thought of this in the comment section down below. Did you really care enough about Overwatch 2 to even worry about this? Did you want the PvE mode? Did you even care about... Do you even care about Overwatch 2? Just let me know in the comment section down below. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.
Morse. Marvelous. Together on the track. Let's go. Red sus, red sus. Red sus, red sus. Red sus, red sus. Red sus, sus. Red sus, red sus. Red sus, red sus. Red sus, red sus. Red sus us.